You're listening to the My Simplified Life podcast, and this is episode number 227. Welcome to the My Simplified Life podcast, a place where you will learn that your past and even your present don't define your future. Regardless of what stage of life you're in, I want you to feel inspired and encouraged to pursue your dreams, simplify your life, and start taking action. I'm your host, Michelle Glogovac, author of How to Get On Podcasts, the podcast matchmaker, and CEO and founder of the MLG Collective. I'm excited to share my stories and life lessons with you while taking you on my own journey. This is My Simplified Life. Hey friends, welcome back to another episode. I'm your host, Michelle Glogovac. As I was thinking about today's episode, I got onto the topic of expectations and boundaries, and I realized I talk about it quite a bit. And it could be fresh on my mind because, hey, I saw my therapist a week ago. So it's something that came up. And when I looked back at past episodes, I'm going to link to all of them in the show notes, but I wanted to list them out for you too. And it started back on episode 9, where I talked about creating boundaries as a form of self-care, and how having boundaries around the things that we do and the people that we allow in our lives is really a way to care for ourselves, because it ensures that we place our happiness at the forefront of everything we do. Then in episode 29, I discussed managing expectations of others when it comes to your business. This was really important for me back then because as a newer business owner, I thought that, family and friends were going to share what I did with the world. That's very wrong. And then I found out how wrong it was to have such expectations, as I talked about in episode 219, when I discussed managing the expectations you have of other people and whether or not you should be putting your expectations lower, or if you really just need to pivot along the way of who you expect what from. And then I also talked in episode 155 about how you can say no and still make a difference in the world. And that had a lot to do with me raising my hand all the time, volunteering for everything. And there is still a part of me that does that too often. I've relinquished quite a bit of the volunteer stuff, and yet it's still Michelle can do it, so Michelle does it. But again, that's going to reduce as my business grows, as I grow as a person, as my life becomes busier. And so this topic came up last week for me in regards to two things. One was around my business and how I do really pretty much everything. And when I started my business, I was so proud of that. And I still am proud of that because I know how everything runs in my business. I know all of the accounting aspects. I know the marketing. I know what goes into onboarding my clients. I know what goes into pitching the clients, into promoting it, into the podcast, and every other aspect of my business, of this show, of my book. It's involved me. And I think this is important for every person who owns a business, every CEO, to know how things run. Because if you don't know how it should be done, then you won't know when mistakes are being made. You won't know when someone isn't doing their job or performing the way that they should in that capacity, because you don't know how it's done. Now that I know how it's all done, I need to step back and stop doing all the things. This comes up especially when it comes around bookkeeping and accounting. And I've shared, I do not like numbers. I like to see numbers as they increase, but I do not like to do reconciliation type stuff. I've done it for years. I did it when I first started out in my corporate career in aviation. Numbers just don't excite me unless it's goal related. And it's me chasing a goal to exceed an expectation or to make more money, that kind of a thing. And that's totally different from let's sit down and do our taxes or reconcile the checkbook from last month. I get nothing out of that. It bores me so badly. And it's things like that that I am working on relinquishing. things like creating all of the graphics for my social media, whether it's the client quotes or the podcast quotes or my own quotes from other interviews. Is it really necessary that I'm creating all of these? No, it quite frankly isn't. I do love having full control over my social media and interacting with everyone because it's me. It's me who's showing up. It's me who's writing the captions. It's me who's in my stories and promoting all of this stuff and sharing with you what goes on in my life. But when it comes to actual graphics, do I need to be the one who copies and pastes a quote into a graphic to hit schedule? No. And so these are things that I need to create boundaries for. I'm really good. Apparently, this is according to my therapist, so I'm going to trust her on this one. I have been good at creating boundaries when it comes to clients and when it comes to what I will do or want to do within my business. I've gotten better at creating boundaries when it comes to the volunteer aspect. What I haven't even tackled yet is the boundaries when it comes to what I am willing to do within my work. I don't have a boundary. I do it all, and I'm okay with doing it all. And yet now I'm finding that the more I do, the less time I have for doing the things that I really want to do, like write more, create more, and just allow myself to have that flexibility and creativeness. So that's a boundary that I'm working on. Another boundary, per se, that has come up recently for me, and it's something that I've talked about on social media, and it's something that I've discussed with close friends, is around the people that we let into our lives. The friends that are just blossoming into friendships, and then to find out who they really are. What are their beliefs? How can we be friends? And do we navigate around those beliefs that we don't share? Or do we not let that friendship grow the way the other person might want? And I'm alluding to, let's talk about the election that's coming up. Let's not, right? It's been too much of a traumatic 8 years, really, when you think about what we as Americans have been through. And here we are facing it again with what's going to happen in November. And so there are people who still have those beliefs that a certain individual should be our president. So now that we've gone through 8 years of knowing who this person really is, what he believes in, what he stands for, we can all make mistakes, right? The person who voted for him in 2016 is now saying it's 2024. No, I've woken up. I know this is not the right person for our country. And if you're a woman, you really know this is not the right person for our country. So what do we do when we have someone who is an acquaintance who believes he is right? I tend to look for the common ground, to be kind. Well, it's a nice person. And then I see on social media that, some people believe because someone did some little good thing along the way, that overrides all of the bad. And I referred to this the other day in a comment that I had replied to on Instagram as a microscopic good. We're allowing the microscopic good to overtake the astronomical bad that a person has done. And that's not okay. And so there are many people who are taking the microscopic good and making it something so much bigger than what it is. Oh, they went to church one time and they said a prayer. And that overrides taking away women's rights or taking away the rights of immigrants or any other thing, banning books, putting down LGBTQIA plus people, taking away all of these rights somehow because this microscopic good was done 100 years ago. This person is put on a pedestal, and that's not right. And so I go back to the individuals who believe in promoting the microscopic good. Do I associate with them, or do I put up that boundary to say, you know what? My mental health, my physical health, the health of my family, the rights of all of us deserve better. And so I've come to the conclusion that no, we can't be friends because this isn't healthy. This isn't right. And at this point in my life, I do believe in a black and white. There is no gray area when it comes to this. And that is a boundary that I have to make for myself. Whether or not you agree with it, whether or not anyone else agrees with it, this is what's best for me. And so that's the boundary that I am putting up and that I'm going to allow myself to have because it's what is best for me. It's what's best for my family. It is what is best for a large number of Americans that I stand up for. And that's really tough for me to come to grips with because I've always been, like I said, that person who looks at the person. But your beliefs also represent who you are as a person. And if you don't stand up for other people and yourself included, then I'm not sure what we're going to have in common as friends, if that makes sense. I don't say any of this lightly, nor do I say it with a mean bone in my body because that's not who I am. But I do feel that if you take a stand when it comes to the rights of others, then I have to take that same stand. And it's going to be a much different one from what you're standing for. And therefore, I don't know how a friendship could survive such a difference of opinion. And so my message for you today is that you should have boundaries that protect your time, your mental health, your family, yourself, all around, whether it's giving up bookkeeping responsibilities or it's just not letting a friendship go further than where it has started because you have such differing opinions. Let that be okay because it is okay. You and I deserve to protect our hearts, our minds, ourselves, our families in however we need to. And if it means not creating new friendships that weren't there to begin with, then that's okay. It is absolutely okay to create the boundary. And it doesn't mean you're not being kind. You say hello, you ask, how are you? But you don't have to go and have dinners together. You don't have to share a glass of wine together. That's okay. And I say this always as much for you as I say it for myself, because as you know, these sessions are really me talking it out for myself. And you get to listen to me talking to myself when I do so. So allow yourself that space and accept that it's okay to have those boundaries. If you need to go back and listen to those other episodes, I'm going to link to all of them so you can look at how your self-care includes these boundaries, how you can manage the expectations of others, and how that'll create more boundaries, and how boundaries are actually a really good thing that we all need more of.